Since childhood, you felt something was off. The world around you never made complete sense. People spoke one thing, but you heard the truth hiding between their words. You noticed details others ignored. You felt emotions they buried. You saw patterns long before they unfolded. They called you too deep, too quiet, or too weird. But deep down, they weren't mocking you. They were afraid of you, because your silence was never weakness. It was calculation. You were observing, learning, decoding. While they laughed, you listened. While they played the game, you studied the rules, and then started creating your own. And the truth is, they always sensed it, that behind your calm eyes lived a mind they couldn't manipulate, a heart they couldn't lie to, a spirit they couldn't break. You see, some souls aren't meant to fit in. They're meant to stand out quietly until the world finally realizes how much power hides behind humility. And you, chosen one, have always carried that silent power. But they didn't see it that way. They tried to outsmart you, gaslight you, make you question your own reality. They smiled to your face but secretly studied you, trying to figure out how you could sense things before they happened. They said you were overreacting. They said you were imagining things. But you were just ahead of time. Your mind works like lightning, processing layers others can't even see. You don't need validation because your instincts are your intelligence. And that's what makes you dangerous to anyone who survives by manipulation. They never wanted you to see your own brilliance, because the moment you realize who you are, the entire illusion collapses. But here's the truth they never wanted you to discover. You were never supposed to blend in with the crowd. You were meant to lead the evolution of it. Everything you've been through, every misunderstanding, every rejection, every silent battle was a test, a divine initiation. And now your awakening begins. Because what they once mocked, your sensitivity, your intuition, your intelligence, is about to become your greatest weapon. The weapon that doesn't destroy, but reveals. Reveals truth, reveals purpose, reveals you. They tried to outsmart you, but they forgot. You were never playing their game. You were rewriting it from the shadows. And now the shadows are gone. It's your time, your season, your rise. Comment: I always knew I was different if this message hit your soul, because the next 29 minutes will prove you were right all along. It continues the cinematic flow of your opening. Emotional, suspense-driven, designed for high retention and maximum comment engagement. People think intelligence means grades, degrees, or big words. But you've always known it's something different, something alive. Your intelligence doesn't just think, it feels. You don't memorize, you see patterns. You don't calculate, you sense energy. That's why you can walk into a room and instantly feel who's fake, who's jealous, and who's silently rooting for you. You sense lies before they're spoken. You decode emotions that others can't even name. You connect dots no one else even notices. Because your mind and soul work as one. And that scared people. They couldn't categorize you. You were too logical for the dreamers, too intuitive for the skeptics, too honest for the manipulators. So they did what small minds always do. They labeled you different. They said you were overanalyzing, overthinking, too sensitive. But deep down, you were just overaware. You saw the layers behind every word, the motive behind every smile, the truth behind every silence. And that's not something they teach in schools. That's something the universe codes into old souls. See, not all intelligence comes from books. Some of it comes from lifetimes, from pain you survived, from intuition that was sharpened in silence. You didn't learn through lessons. You learned through loss. And every heartbreak, betrayal, or disappointment wasn't just emotional, it was educational. You were being trained to think beyond logic, to feel reality before it formed. That's why you can predict how situations unfold before anyone else even realizes what's happening. That's why people come to you for advice they don't even follow. And that's why the smartest thing you ever did was trust yourself. But here's the twist. What if your intelligence was never meant for classrooms? It was designed for consciousness. What if you weren't built to fit into systems, but to reprogram them? What if the very thing that made you an outcast was the same thing that makes you chosen? Think about it. When everyone else reacts, you pause. When others chase approval, you analyze intention. When chaos hits, you don't crumble, you calculate. That's not arrogance. That's alignment. You've got a higher kind of awareness, the kind that sees through illusions, lies, and hidden motives. You can read people's energy faster than they can speak. You can feel when something's off, even if no one admits it. That's not paranoia. That's perception. And deep down, you've always known it. The world taught you to doubt yourself, to shrink your insight so others could feel comfortable, to play dumb just to be accepted. But those days are over, because your awareness is your superpower. When others walk blindly into manipulation, you see the setup. When others fall for fake love, you sense the vibration. When others settle for survival, you crave evolution. You were never meant to follow. You were born to decode. Your brain isn't random. It's spiritual technology. It downloads signals the ordinary mind can't handle. And that's why the universe keeps whispering, trust what you know. The next time you doubt yourself, remember this. Intelligence isn't about knowing everything. It's about feeling the truth before proof arrives. And you've been doing that your whole life. Comment below. I always knew I was different. Because deep down, you've always known your intuition wasn't confusion, it was confirmation. And in the next segment, you'll find out exactly why they tried so hard to dim that light. This segment deepens the emotional storytelling. It explains why the chosen ones get misunderstood, feared, and envied, with cinematic rhythm, retention suspense, and a viral, but here's the twist, turn. They called you lazy. They called you emotional. They called you an overthinker. But here's what they never realized. While they were busy judging, you were analyzing. You weren't stuck. You were studying. You weren't dramatic. You were feeling the energy in the room. You weren't overthinking. You were seeing 10 layers deeper than anyone else dared to look. You've always felt things too deeply, and that made people uncomfortable. Because when your intuition walks into a room, every mask starts to crack. People can't hide their true selves around you, and that scares them. Your presence reveals what their words try to conceal. See, emotional intelligence is the highest form of awareness, and you were born with it. You can sense tension in silence. You can hear dishonesty in tone. You can see pain behind a smile. And while others called that too sensitive, the universe called it a gift. But society doesn't know how to handle souls like yours. It fears what it can't label. It mocks what it doesn't understand. Because your depth exposes the shallowness of the world around you. That's why they tried to dim your light. Not because you were weak, but because you were blinding. You made people see themselves. And not everyone is ready for that kind of mirror. You probably noticed it early on. People who once cheered for you suddenly grew distant. They made jokes about your dreams. They minimized your ideas. They said things like, you think too much, or you're too emotional. But here's the secret. That was projection. They saw in you what they couldn't face in themselves. Your strength reminded them of their insecurities. Your clarity revealed their confusion. Your confidence triggered their self-doubt. And when someone can't match your frequency, they'll try to lower it. They'll twist your kindness into weakness. They'll frame your empathy as naivety. They'll mistake your silence for surrender. But what they never understood is, your silence was strategy. You were protecting your peace while their chaos exposed itself. You didn't lose energy arguing with fools. You conserved energy for your evolution. You outgrew the drama quietly, and that's what drove them crazy. Because people like you don't need revenge. Your growth is the revenge. Your peace is the proof. But here's the twist. The same people who doubted you, whispered about you, and underestimated you will soon depend on your clarity. Because when confusion hits, they'll seek the calmest voice in the storm, yours. When chaos erupts, they'll look for the one person who always saw beyond illusion, you. When the truth finally breaks through, they'll realize the person they ignored was the only one who truly understood. You're not just emotionally intelligent. You're energetically awake. You see beyond words, beyond masks, beyond moments. You see patterns of destiny. That's why you attract people in crisis, because their soul knows your light can guide them. So never shrink again. Never apologize for feeling too much, knowing too much, or seeing too much. You weren't meant to blend in. You were meant to remind people what real awareness feels like. And when they return, confused, humbled, and seeking your guidance, don't say, "I told you so." Simply smile, because they'll finally see what you saw all along. Comment, "They can't dim my light," if you're done hiding your power, because the next segment will reveal the exact moment your awakening becomes unstoppable. It's emotional, visual, and magnetic, designed for audience retention, deep resonance, and massive comment engagement. There comes a moment in every chosen one's life when something snaps, not in anger, but in clarity. You wake up one morning, look around, and realize you've been trying to earn the approval of people who were never meant to understand you. It hits you like lightning. You stop explaining yourself. You stop shrinking your energy to make others comfortable. You stop pretending you don't see what you clearly see. You stop waiting for permission to be who you already are. It's not rebellion, it's rebirth. That's the day you stop begging for acceptance and start living from awareness. The day you stop asking, "Why don't they see my worth?" and start saying, "Why did I ever need them to?" Because deep down you finally understand. They couldn't see your light because it would have exposed their darkness. They couldn't recognize your truth because it would have destroyed their illusion. They couldn't match your love because they were still running from their own pain. And suddenly you're free. Free from the need to prove. Free from the need to please. Free from the weight of pretending to be normal. It's almost eerie how peace feels after chaos. You stop forcing conversations. You stop chasing connections. You stop caring about being misunderstood because you realize misunderstanding is the universe's way of protecting your frequency. You start walking differently. You start speaking less, but your presence says more. People notice. Your energy changes before your words do. And those who used to overlook you start watching closely, because once a chosen one stops seeking approval, they become unshakable. But here's the twist. When you stop chasing approval, the universe starts chasing you. Opportunities appear where doors were once locked. People start respecting you once you stop explaining yourself. Money, peace, love, all begin flowing in effortlessly because your energy is no longer leaking through validation. The same people who ignored your messages start reaching out. The same doors that were closed suddenly open. The same world that dismissed you begins echoing your words back. And you realize the power was never outside of you. It was always inside, waiting for you to stop giving it away. That's the real awakening. When you realize peace isn't found in being liked, it's found in being aligned. You stop performing for approval and start vibrating in truth. You stop trying to fit into spaces that can't hold your frequency. You stop negotiating your value just to stay relevant in someone else's story. You understand now, not everyone lost was a loss. Some people were just proof that your light grew too bright for their comfort zone. Some rejections were actually redirections, the universe's way of clearing your path for real alignment. That's your breaking point and your breakthrough. It's not the end of who you were, it's the beginning of who you were meant to be. Because once you reach that point of truth, there's no going back. Your spirit won't tolerate small talk, fake love, or half-truths. You crave depth. You crave real. You crave destiny. And that's when everything starts clicking. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Comment, yes, if you've had that one day where everything finally made sense. Because in the next segment, you'll discover what the universe was secretly doing behind all those silent seasons. The divine test that shaped your power. It blends mysticism plus logic, builds cinematic tension, and keeps the "but here's the twist" suspense that drives retention. There's a reason the smartest, most awakened souls go through the hardest seasons. The universe doesn't hand out wisdom like candy. It tests for it. And those tests never look glamorous. They come disguised as isolation, silence, fake friendships, and moments where you question everything, even your own purpose. You start wondering, did I do something wrong? People you trusted drift away. The noise of the world fades out. Suddenly, it's just you, alone with your thoughts, your intuition, and that quiet voice inside that says, keep going. It's not punishment, it's calibration. The universe is upgrading your mind, fine-tuning your awareness, and stripping away distractions that can't follow you to your next level. Because smart souls can't evolve in crowds, they evolve in silence. You can't hear divine instruction when you're surrounded by noise. You can't see who's loyal when everyone's pretending to be. So the universe isolates you, not to hurt you, but to reveal truth. During those nights when you couldn't sleep, during those days when no one texted back, during those moments when you felt invisible, something powerful was happening behind the scenes. Your frequency was being recoded. Your energy field was being cleansed. Your vision was being sharpened. Because before a chosen one leads, they must first learn to walk alone. That's how your intuition graduates from whisper to command. That's how your discernment becomes unshakable. That's how your strength turns spiritual. But here's the twist. The final test of intelligence isn't about knowledge, it's about trust. Can you trust the universe when logic fails? Can you trust the silence even when it feels like abandonment? Can you trust that the setback was actually sacred timing? That's where many give up, right before the miracle aligns, because the smartest soul still has to surrender. And surrender isn't weakness, it's awareness that some answers only arrive once you stop chasing them. So when you feel alone, remember, solitude is a classroom. When you feel delayed, remember, divine timing never runs late. When you feel unseen, remember, you're being prepared, not punished. The universe never wastes pain. Every loss recalibrates your direction. Every delay redirects your blessing. Every silence strengthens your signal. You're not falling behind. You're aligning ahead. And once you pass this test, everything starts accelerating at the speed of faith. Comment, I trust the process. If you know the silence wasn't rejection, it was reconstruction. Because in the next segment, you'll see what happens when that calibration finally completes. When the miracle shift begins and your destiny clicks into place. This part feels like the reward scene. The calm after the storm, where intuition turns into manifestation and destiny finally clicks into place. Then one day, everything starts aligning. Not because you forced it, not because you chased it, but because your energy finally matches your purpose. Your mind feels lighter. Your ideas start flowing faster than ever, like divine downloads straight from the source. The right people start appearing at the right time. Opportunities seem to find you, not the other way around. And luck suddenly feels magnetic. You wake up with clarity. You move with confidence. You speak with power that doesn't shout. It radiates. Because after all those tests, the universe is finally saying, now you're ready. This is the miracle shift. It's not a coincidence. It's confirmation. All that isolation, all that heartbreak, all those delays, they weren't detours, they were directions. Every piece that once looked random now connects with precision. You begin to notice how effortlessly things fall into place. Your intuition leads you before logic can question. You walk into spaces you used to dream about and feel like you've been there before. That's alignment. That's spiritual intelligence in motion. You no longer chase, you attract. You no longer beg, you believe. And when you believe, the universe responds like an echo of your faith. People who once underestimated you start noticing your glow. The same ones who ignored your vision now ask how you did it. But you can't explain it, because it wasn't strategy, it was surrender. You stopped overthinking and started allowing. And that's when miracles multiply. You realize the real magic isn't in what you get, it's in who you become. The miracle was never outside of you. It was in your evolution. You went from surviving to creating, from worrying to manifesting, from chasing validation to attracting vibration. But here's the twist. The smarter you get spiritually, the quieter your life becomes. Because peace is the new proof of genius. You no longer need to prove your worth. Your energy does that for you. You don't need to argue your truth. Your aura speaks louder than your words. You don't need to announce your success. Your alignment makes it obvious. The chaos that once tempted you now bores you. The drama that once distracted you now repels you. And the peace that once felt lonely now feels holy. Because when everything aligns, you realize your greatest reward wasn't fame, money, or attention. It was clarity. It was stillness. It was the ability to hear your own soul clearly again. Comment, "I'm ready for my miracle shift," if you feel your alignment finally unfolding. Because in the final segment, we'll uncover the ultimate transformation, the rebirth of your destiny, and the moment your light becomes unstoppable. This wraps your 30-minute masterpiece with emotion, empowerment, and a powerful call to action that leaves viewers inspired and ready to comment. They thought your silence meant weakness, but it was strategy. They thought you were overthinking, but you were decoding destiny. They thought you were falling behind, but really you were loading power. All this time, while they gossiped, doubted, and disappeared, you were quietly evolving into the person you were always meant to be. You weren't losing, you were aligning. You weren't breaking down, you were breaking open. And now the waiting season is over. You've passed the tests, endured the silence, survived the storms. You've outgrown your old timeline, and the universe knows it. Your energy feels different now. There's a calm in your soul that scares small minds and attracts higher ones. There's a glow that doesn't come from validation. It comes from vibration. You've reclaimed what was always yours, your power. This is your rebirth moment, chosen one. The version of you that doubted, feared, and chased approval no longer exists. The new you doesn't beg, doesn't prove, doesn't wait. You simply know. Because once you've seen the truth, you can't unsee it. Once you've tasted freedom, you can't go back to survival. And once you've met your higher self, every lesser version of you falls away. Now you understand why everything had to happen the way it did. The pain built your perception, the losses cleared your lane, the silence trained your spirit to hear divine instructions. You were never being punished. You were being prepared. Prepared to walk into rooms where your presence shifts energy. Prepared to speak words that carry healing. Prepared to create a life that feels like peace, not performance. People will notice the change. They'll say you're different, and they'll be right, because you are. You're not chasing attention anymore. You're walking in purpose. You're not proving your value. You're embodying it. You've become the vibration that once felt impossible. But here's the twist. The world hasn't even seen the brightest version of your light yet. Everything up until now was rehearsal. The real show, your destiny era, starts now. So lift your head, breathe, smile. Because this chapter isn't about revenge or validation. It's about recognition. It's time to recognize who you've always been. The soul they couldn't break, the light they couldn't dim, the mind they couldn't outsmart. You are the miracle they never saw coming. And from this moment on, you walk in it unapologetically. Comment below. I reclaim my power. Because this message isn't coincidence, it's confirmation. Like, share, and subscribe. Because the next video reveals the 3 signs your hidden power has just activated. Your story isn't ending, it's ascending. And now the universe is watching, waiting, ready to see what happens when a chosen one finally remembers who they are.